sound. Good. Gemar Chatima Tova, may you be sealed for a good year. Peter Kupfer playing beautifully and soulfully. Cantor Garfine and I are actually coming to you live. Most of our services, as you know, were pre-recorded. Yizkor is not. We'll be joined today by three groups who will speak movingly and soulfully about a grievous loss that they have incurred over the past year, and a bit about their grief journey and the perspective that they have gained. I'll be introducing each along the way. I also want to mention that Yizkor sermons composed by your rabbis are available on our site, and so you can read and contemplate those anytime you wish. This service is called Yizkor. May God remember. Could be called Nizkor. Let us remember. But no, we're asking God to remember. I think for several reasons. First, we're asking God to remember because we hope that the neshama, the soul of our loved one, has gone to another realm, and that God will understand their deeds, understand all that they meant to us, and will bless them in the world to come. I think it's called Yizkor also because our memories are severely limited. How much can we actually remember, even of the lives of people that we love and are close to? Sometimes our memories are limited because these are complex relationships and we're trying to freeze some memories out. Sometimes we have a sense of guilt. And sometimes it's none of those things. Sometimes we just yearn to remember that which only God can remember. So we will be inspired at this moment because we have some quietude to sit and remember all that he, all that she meant to us, and all that they gave us in terms of values and inspiration, and how we wouldn't be the people we are really without them. I also want to take this moment because, as you know, when Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, we were unable to react in real time except for some beautiful lines penned by Rabbi Spratt on our site. So this is also a memorial tribute to a remarkable woman who single-handedly did a great deal to try to inspire improved voting rights, gay rights, women's rights, of course, a number of cases. I mean, it's amazing to me that we're still battling whether private companies have to cover birth control for women. Yes, in 2020 in the United States. Ruth Bader Ginsburg also thought that was ridiculous. And I just want to share a couple of lines because Linda Greenhouse is a remarkable journalist. And most of you caught the article in yesterday's Times, but she summed up some things about RBG much better than I could. It was to have not only the Constitution, talking about her career, but also society itself understand men and women as equal. She envisioned a world different from the one she had grown up in, a better world in which gender was no obstacle to women's achievement, to their ability to dream big and to realize their aspirations. Then she set out to use the law to usher that world into existence. She understood that the law could be harnessed in service to fundamental transformation. And it can be obviously used for good, can be used for something less good as we contemplate the future, but for this moment, for this Yizkor moment, we pause to remember the remarkable legacy of Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg. If you are following along in the Yom Kippur Machzor, our service will begin on page 541. 41 at the top. This is the hour of memory. This is our house of comfort. Wounded by loss, we retreat from life. Our synagogue gathers us in, and we look forward to that day. Into this place, we bring stories and prayers, unanswered questions, tears that need to be shed, lies recollected and carried within us, moments of courage, laughter, and pain. This day embraces them all. This place embraces us all. Now the heart opens in sorrow, for we are time subjects, and all that we love we must lose. So let us hold fast to the love that remains and cherish the light of the sun. Today, all of us walk the mourner's path. Together, may we find strength. On page 544, we come to a very important part of our Yizkor, and that is the 16th Psalm, that is Shaviti. Keep me, Eternal One. For in you I find refuge. In you my soul finds its peace. Guardian of all my days, you are my cup from which I drink and the portion of my life. I thank you for guiding my steps, for the inner voice that instructs me. I have set you before me always, with you beside me I cannot fail. So my heart is glad, my soul rejoices, and all of me can rest secure. For you will not abandon me to death, you show me the path of life, and your presence is fullness of joy, the Shaviti.
Shiviti Adonai, v'negdi tamid ki mimini ba'aleimot. Lachein samach libi v'yagel kvodi, ach besori yishkon levetach. Ki lo tazov nafshi lishol, lo titain chasidcha lirot shachat, todi'eni orach hayim, orach hayim. Sova simachot et panecha ne'imot b'mincha nitzach. Shiviti Adonai lenigdi tamid, ki mimini ba'aleimot.
We turn now to page 546 and another significant psalm that informs this Yizkor hour, a psalm that helps us come to grasp with our mortality and how God can help elevate us to a life of purpose. Our days, like the grass of the field, like flowers in the meadow, vanish in a momentary gust of wind, gone, never to be seen again. But God's love is infinite and with us forever. God's goodness reaches far into the future. This is the gift of the covenant. Enosh. What am I missing? Enosh. Those were, of course, pictures that you submitted through CRS Remembers. Many were extended family, of course, and some were members of our congregation, dear friends that we recognize. May their memories, in fact, be a blessing. Our first speaker of the three groups this afternoon is Dr. Ruth Bertman, a clinical psychologist. We just saw her beautiful family on screen. She and Candace von Stryker have a beautiful, remarkable boy, Nathan. Candace Garfine and I officiated at his bar mitzvah last year. Beautiful bar mitzvah, and she lost her beloved Candace last year. And so Dr. Bertman is a clinical psychologist, I mentioned. She had been a faculty member at the Einstein School of Medicine, and we're very we're pleased that she's able to share her feelings and perspectives this Yizkor hour. Dr. Ruth Bertman.
Sudden death is unspeakable. Without preparation, we are blindsided. The pain, palpable and disorienting. In a flash, we are changed, and time stops. Time crawls. Days are long, nights are longer. I've been through this before, I told myself, as my world spun and pain seeped in. I've experienced loss. I've experienced sudden loss. I've helped many people through many losses, but never this, never before my life partner, my wife. No experience, personal or professional, set me up for this. There is no guide for or mastery of loss, nor should there be. Every loss is unique, just as every love is unique. Every loss brings to mind the unanswerable. Why now? Why her? Why us? Where is God? What now? Every loss brings to heart ache. We aren't accustomed to the acceptance of pain. The pain, however, is ours. It signifies our true and heartfelt connection to our loves and our losses. Our closest friends and dear family and clergy accompany us at times on this pain-filled journey. I look into the eyes of others and they look back. I still remember looking. Sometimes my son and I chose to be only with each other, or each of us in solitude with our pain. In the earliest days after loss, we are surrounded and held up by love. Family and friends show up. They don't text, they just come. We let people in and they hold us. The closest friends I am so lucky to have say, please call me if you're up in the middle of the night. It will make me feel like I can do something. Just by saying that, they are doing so much. For a time, we don't know anything. We don't need to know. We just wake up and keep going, or we stay awake and keep going. Time crawls. And time demands from us that we bury our dead. When I told my son that we were going to have a funeral, he said, of course, but when? When I answered in 2 days, he was stunned. Why now? He asked. And I replied, when would you prefer? I don't know, he said, maybe in a month or so. I understood. I wasn't ready either, I said. It's just how we do it. In 2 weeks, I trickled in some work. Caring friends gently suggested my son return to school, return to normal. But normal was different. Normal is something else now. I asked him if he was ready to go back, and he said a definitive no. My mother just died. I understand, I said. I don't want to go back to work either, but I think I have to. The days were long, the nights even longer. I told myself one breath at a time. From one breath to 1 minute to 1 hour, that's how it goes. Sadly, COVID brought us the gift of time. It's a world tragedy and an American nightmare with much illness, death, and fear. The world on tilt slows down with us, and slowly, Very slowly, we catch up with it. We are alone, and we are all one, in the words of Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and we are surrounded. We only need to open our eyes and look for those who have the courage to look back. There is no easy way. The day Rabbi Spratt called to ask if I would speak on Yizkor, my son and I were visiting Candace and her grave for the first time. It was 11 days after her birthday, the second one we marked with her missing. Before that, I couldn't speak the word cemetery aloud. The timing, delayed because of COVID, was right for us, well after the prescribed year for unveiling. His talked and filled her in on as much as we could. We lost track of time and stayed and talked and placed stones on her grave until we felt ready to go. No ritual can dictate our time, the time we need. We only know it as it clarifies itself. We need to listen to ourselves, and we need to listen deeply. And when we can, sometimes, as we have, we find comfort and we go on being with the help of our family, our friends, and our community surrounding us from near or far. Thank you for being that community. Good Yom Tif, and may you have a year filled with more peace than pain, as well as love and memories of love that sustain you in well-being.
Thank you, Ruth, for those very beautiful, helpful, inspirational words. Page 591, words of healing. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. What blessings were bestowed upon me by the loved ones whom I have lost? In what ways have I been cared for and sustained by others? Who deserves my gratitude? Who is a blessing in my life today? Blessed is the pilgrimage from grief to gratitude. Precious are the sights along the way. We pray now for humility, to see in all things the great artist of eternity, for generosity, to respond to the gift of life by giving of ourselves, for strength, to hold on to life and let it go. Baruch atah Adonai Makor HaChayim, blessed are you, Holy One, who gives and renews life. Page 593, the cantor's rendering of the 23rd Psalm.
Adonai roi lo echsar in out asher arbitzeini al mi menuchot Yeshoviv Yanchini v'magalei tzedek Yanchini v'magalei tzedek L'man shemo Gam kilich Amavet lo irora ki ata imadi shivticha umishanticha Sit Yirifoni Kol Yemei Chayai Kol Yemei Chayai Shavti B'vit Adonai Yorech Yamim Adonai Roi Lo Echsar Adonai Roi Lo Echsar.
God is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal makes me lie down in green pastures, leading me beside the still waters, restoring my soul. You guide me in straight paths for the sake of your name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. Our second group of speakers on this Yizkor afternoon, Juju Chang and Neil Shapiro, both world-class journalists. They've joined Rodeph Sholom, I think about 20 years ago now, and raised their sons Jared, Travis, and Mason within our shul, within the Rodeph Sholom school as well. This year they lost Neil's beloved father, Sumner, on March 9th. Sumner Shapiro is a man that I got to know and always looked forward to his visits when he came to New York and came to shul, as he so often did. So at this time, Neil Shapiro and then Juju Chang.
On March 9th, another member of the greatest generation passed away. Sumner Shapiro, my father, was 96 years old. Like many of the greatest generation, he reflected that he was lucky and successful beyond his wildest dreams. The son of a police officer, he grew up in the Depression in a family with few resources and even fewer expectations for him. But World War II changed all that. He fought in Patton's Third Army and went to college on the GI Bill. He earned his graduate degree at Columbia while also working full-time as a labor organizer. One day he was interviewed for the Labor Union Yearbook. That's how he met my mother. They moved to Albany, where my dad helped build a successful textile company. They had 2 children and 6 grandchildren. When my mother died 15 years ago, he carried on, facing his own medical issues with dignity and humor. Aging is not for the young or the faint of heart, he would say. Especially now, I realize how true it is that my dad's spirit lives on, in the way he shaped me and my family, in the ways he touched so many others. Dad was humble. For someone so accomplished, he wrote articles, had patents on the machines he engineered, designed the house we lived in. Dad was very modest. As a boy, I was hungry for his war stories, but Dad always demurred. He eventually told his grandsons how close he had come to death, and how years after his service, he still had nightmares about incoming artillery. And a year before he died, he helped us plan a trip to the Normandy battlefields. "Don't make me out to be a war hero," he would say. I was scared to death most of the time. Dad also showed us what tzedakah meant. He was president of the Jewish nursing home. He was devoted to sponsor a scholar, helping high school kids from challenged backgrounds find their way to college. Whenever he went out for an expensive meal, he made a donation to the local food bank. In the senior community where he spent his final 14 years, he taught a current events class every week. It was not unusual to have him answer the phone this way: can't talk now, have a class to prep. Dad showed me in all this the importance of doing the right thing. I saw how he treated his employees, never asking them to do something he wouldn't do, never asking them to work harder than he did. Years later, Dad had retired. We'd be out shopping and some of his former employees would come up and shake his hands and say, "Thanks, Mr. Shapiro." "What's that about?" I'd ask, and he didn't say much. Well, it turns out that when his textile company was closing down in the 90s, as many textile companies did, management had a choice. It could preserve the executive pension plan or preserve the plan for the workers. Dad fought to protect the workers, even at his own expense. Dad said he had a life well lived. I would add, it was also a life lived righteously.
So everyone called Sumner Papa. He was the kind of guy who read the New York Times every day, cover to cover, and finished the crosswords. He loved a good pun, and it's a trait I've discovered runs in the family. But you can imagine when Neil Shapiro brought me home to meet his parents 30 years ago, I wasn't exactly the Jewish girl that their parents had always dreamed of. But despite the shock and the initial distress, both Sumner and Mildred always made me feel welcome and blessed. And after 3 decades of vacations in Mexico and summer barbecues and family holidays, I realized that Sumner was in many ways more of a father to me than my own dad, who I lost long ago. Just before the pandemic hit, when we knew that Papa's health was failing, I volunteered to spend the weekend with him to help transition him to 24-hour care back up in Albany. Neil stayed home with the boys, none of us realizing that it would be his last weekend. Thank God, I forced our sons, Mason, Travis, and Jared, to FaceTime Papa the day before he passed. I even put Jared on the spot and asked him to tell his grandfather 3 things that he learned from him. Of course, no one likes to be put on the spot, but Jared sighed and he thought for a second, and then he said, "Well, Papa, I learned humility from you. You taught me that you don't have to be loud to be seen as strong. You taught me about work ethic because we saw you working hard your entire life. And finally, I guess you taught me about family because family is everything." And I thought, wow, what a gift to be able to hear and see your legacy so boldly and so clearly announced. The night before Papa passed, I knew something was off. So I pulled up a chair and decided to sleep next to him. And in the wee hours of the morning, when his breathing changed, I called in his longtime caregiver, Claudia, who still prefers the title friend. Together, we held his hands. I talked to him about Nana's whiskey sours and those Mexican sunsets, and how much each and every one of his children, Neil and Marcia, and his 6 grandchildren loved him so very deeply. And thank goodness Claudia, in that moment, who's Catholic, had the presence of mind to say to me, "Is there something you want to say, like a prayer, something?" And so as loudly as I could, I recited the Shema into his ear. And within a couple of minutes, Papa drew his last breath. It was a sacred moment, one that Claudia and I were honored to be part of. But you know, while I was converting to Judaism about 20 years ago, and again, when we lost his beloved Mildred, Papa and I had had many conversations about what happens. Is there an afterlife? I told him that having been raised by an atheist and by a Buddhist, that I was making that choice affirmatively, a leap of faith to believe in an afterlife. Papa, ever the pragmatist, ever the realist, said he didn't believe in an afterlife, but that he was prepared to be pleasantly surprised. And I like to believe that's exactly what happened.
What a beautiful tribute, and what a beautiful last memory, saying the Shema with him. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we now are going to put on screen pictures of and names of those whom we have lost as a congregation from last Yizkor to this. These are not extended family, but members of the congregation. The cantor will be singing the beautiful Yesh Kochavim. There are stars up above. You can look at the pictures, but this is also a time for silent Yizkor, to be alone with your own thoughts and memories. I would recommend, if you have a Machzor, pages 572 to 578, might help you in your meditation. So now we turn to Yesh Kochavim and the beautiful video that will be in memory of those we have lost.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, יש כוכבים שערם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורח אילם אביקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, we remember.
Significant losses to our community this year, including the very first picture we saw, the first woman to serve as president of this congregation, and only the second to be named honorary president for life, and honored synagogue leaders and dear friends of many of us. And they indeed are being missed and will be missed. At this time, we're going to pay tribute to our beloved Cantor Ephraim Biran. Cantor Biran served our community from 1963 to 1994. So he was chazan with me for my first 4 years and became a dear friend and colleague. I had the honor of standing with his immediate family in the height of COVID at Union Field, and he's buried next to Gunther and Ruth Hirschberg, and right next to him, Rabbi Louis and Lucille Newman. So it's quite a row of distinguished synagogue leaders. To speak about him, He has one of his great legacies. There are many at Rodeph Sholom, but probably the one he is proudest of is his beautiful family. His wife Paula and three children who are each talented in many ways. Most of them got the musical gene, yes, but in many ways indeed. Middle son, Rafi Biran, as a lifelong member of Rodeph Sholom, was born into Rodeph Sholom, was bar mitzvah, was confirmed. I'm sure you sang in the choir, Rafi. I'm just taking a wild guess. So we are so thrilled representing your family and this remarkable legacy. Rafi Biran.
Thank you, Rabbi Levine, for those beautiful words. My name is Raphael Biran, and I'm the second of Cantor Biran's three children. I bring warm wishes from the Biran and Ben-Ami families. We appreciate this opportunity to share why we're so proud of Ephraim and what we believe he gave our Rodeph Sholom family. Born in 1925 in Petach Tikva, Israel, Ephraim possessed a gentle soul and a lifelong passion for music. He sang in the children's choir of his local synagogue, which inspired his decision to found the Rodeph Sholom Children's Choir. He fought in the war for Israel's independence, including the intense struggle to open the road to Jerusalem. Ephraim once shared a story about how he and his fellow fighters would sing the Palmach anthem every night before they headed out to fight. As their numbers dwindled, he was asked by their battalion leader to sing more loudly to compensate for their lost voices. As a young adult, Ephraim joined a community choir and sang all the time at home. A next-door neighbor who was a well-known soprano recognized his potential and encouraged him to take lessons with her voice teacher. He later received a grant from the America-Israel Cultural Foundation to study voice in Italy. Upon his return, he soon became one of the most sought-after baritones in Israel, performing frequently with the Israel Philharmonic and other leading ensembles. Ephraim came to New York in 1962 to explore the possibility of becoming a cantor. 2 days after his arrival, he met my mother, Paula, and they were together for the next 58 years. After 1 year at Temple Sinai in Summit, New Jersey, he auditioned to become cantor of Rodeph Sholom. He told Paula that whether or not he got the job, it was wonderful just to have sung in our magnificent sanctuary. In 1963, at the age of 37, Ephraim began his tenure at Rodeph Sholom, singing at the high holiday services. He was grateful for the warm welcome he received. And over the next 31 years, he appreciated the myriad ways he was called upon to serve our synagogue community, whether performing with his professional choir and organists, training bar and bar mitzvah students, leading the children's choir, teaching Hebrew, or collaborating with clergy, composers, and other colleagues. Through these interactions, he was with us when we celebrated and when we mourned. This was a privilege Ephraim understood and valued deeply. His modesty, kindness, and serenity formed the foundation of his harmonious relationship with the congregation. Harmony. It's appropriate to use this musical term to describe Ephraim's presence at Rodeph Sholom, since it was his musical ability that brought him here. Many of us can still hear his soaring baritone fill the sanctuary. His voice was unique in its warmth, resonance, sincerity, and sweetness. And yet, Ephraim was adept in helping others to find their own voice as well. He took joy in helping them reach their potential and fulfillment in seeing them succeed. Ephraim retired in 1994. His combined 5 decades at Rodeph Sholom as cantor and cantor emeritus enabled him to be present for the life cycle events of generations of families, Ledor Vador. Together, they celebrated weddings that led to namings, B'nai Mitzvot, and then more weddings, forging lifelong friendships, making it all the more meaningful when helping them say goodbye to their loved ones. At the same time, his own life cycle moved forward in its turn, yielding 4 grandchildren. He loved to share the holidays with Shira, Lizzie, Ari, and Lena at Rodeph Sholom when he would blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, and he was proud as they found their own voices and became B'nai Mitzvot themselves. Those of us who are part of Ephraim's journey will never forget his remarkable ability to express the inexpressible through his voice and his love. What a wonderful gift and example for us all.
Thank you, Rafi, for just giving a few. You go on and on about our dear friend Cantor Biran, who is writ large in the memory bank of many, many, and whose legacy will live on forever here at Rodeph Sholom. I just want to tell a brief little anecdote. Is whenever we would talk about somebody and say, well, I think she was adult bat mitzvah in 1994. And I would say, no, it was 1996. Cantor Biran was always right. His memory for adult b'nai mitzvah events that happened was startling. And I cherished then our friendship and still do. I want to thank all three of you, all three groups, I should say, all four of you, for not only bringing to life your loved one, but helping all of us to stir our memory. Remember, I said at the beginning that our memories are limited, but as you unlocked yours, you really helped us to dig deep into our souls, into our hearts, and to remember ever more deeply. We're very, very grateful to you. At this time, if you're following in the Machzor, page 598, if you wish to rise, you may do so, as Cantor Biran will lead us. Well, maybe he will, you never know, but Cantor Garfine for sure will lead us in the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim.
מלא רחמים, שוכן ומרומים, חמסי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קרושים וטהורים, כזרע לנשמת יקירנו שלחו לעולמם. ברחמים יסתירים בסתר כנפיו לעלמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר Amen.
Merciful God, God Most High, let there be perfect rest for the souls of our loved ones who have gone into eternity. May they find shelter in your presence among the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold them close to you forever. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May they find a home in you. May they rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen. So if you have a Machzor, we will be turning to page 606 for the Mourner's Kaddish, as we affirm and hope that God Yizkor will remember all the righteous deeds of our loved ones and help us remember, as we affirm our faith in God and in life. Words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, b'yalma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, Bagala vizman kariv yimru amen. Yehi shmei rabam vorach leolam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudsha birichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'asei shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn here and comfort to all who are bereaved everywhere, as we say together, amen.
Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen.
Thank you for sharing a most moving and memorable Yizkor hour. I just want to tell you, since you've spent most of the day with us, finish Yom Kippur in a beautiful and uplifting way. Our Ne'ilah service, which is quite beautiful, will begin at 5:30, and then you will see all of your clergy on 83rd Street at 6:45 for the brief, because I know some of us are going to break our fast, brief but significant Havdalah as we transition from Yom Kippur back into our regular lives, if we possibly can say regular lives at this time in history. So we're very happy, and thank you once again to Ruth and to Juju and to Neil and to Rafi and to, of course, Peter and, of course, Cantor Garfine for a beautiful service. Ne'ilah begins at 5:30.